Hello, KingdomPreneurs. How are you today? Listen, we're continuing in our series, a little mindset series on clarity, mindful clarity mindset. That's what we're calling it. The first day we spoke about ambivalence, then we spoke about ambivalence, the fear of change, and we spoke about getting clear. Then we talked about procrastination and the lack of clarity that causes procrastination. And we talked about, asking yourself that question, what is it that you are putting off doing and why? But today, we're going to be talking about, in this mindset, the fear of failure, or what really is failure. I was playing around with that title, definitely the fear of failure, or what failure really is, or what failure really means. So, I want you to think about that. What does the fear of failure really mean? When we think about this, well, before I do that, let me introduce myself. I am Satella DeVoe, a KingdomPreneur and intuitive, mindful mindset strategist, and that helps spiritual, creative entrepreneurs, small business, and enterprise owners. And what I do is I help them get energetically clear about their aligning their soul scroll purpose and their big vision to create what? A personal and a successful enterprise. That's what I do. So if I can assist you, we can work together, we can play together and look at some things. But let's get back to a subject matter here, talking about the fear of failure, or what does failure really look like, or what failure really is. They both sound like they're hitting the note for me, so we'll use both. One of the things about failure is it sets you back. And I say that again, when we look at it from this reality, from the standards of this world, that says what success is and what success is meant to be. Because we have to make the contrast between success and failure. Because the reason that you think that you're failing is because the world standard of this reality says, if you're going to be successful in a relationship, you have to be married and have 2.5 kids or something like that. It says that you have to have a high-powered career. It says that you must have attended the best universities. The standards for success that this world says that you must live in a house that is 4,000, 3,000, 4,000 square feet or more. It says that you must have a house in New York, in California, in London, and Paris, somewhere in Europe. If you're not meeting on those standards, it says that you have to drive a particular type of vehicle, whether it's a Jaguar, Mercedes, a Lexus, Acura, BMW, or and then it goes even higher with a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Bentley. It says that you have to travel with the elites of the world to be considered successful. Because if you're not doing those things, then you're a failure according to the world's standard. So the world has a standard, and most of us, from we were small, were told by our parents that in order to be considered successful in life, and to make yourself somebody in life. You know, you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant, or you're going to be a teacher, somebody good and steady. And the thing about it is, a lot of these jobs that we're talking about had security attached to it. So your idea, or our ideas of success from when we were small and growing up, was that you had to have a job. And to get a job, you had to have a good education. Um, so you had two streams that you needed to be successful in. You had a personal level where you needed to get married and have children. You needed to marry up. You needed to marry somebody that would give you stability. And what you found that created was a lot of people marrying people that they didn't really love. But from the perspective of this world's standard of what a successful marriage would look like, it also contained marrying somebody who had stability, marrying somebody who had money, marrying somebody who had some dollars, marrying somebody that could provide you the kind of life that you needed. And so mostly for women, they were left with the idea of marrying people that, for the most part, they didn't really love, but they considered them or they accepted them because they were potentially going to be a good provider. Does not leave for a love affair of the century, does it? Likewise, most people took a job. A lot of men, if you weren't really successful or felt that you weren't going to make it in the business arena, what did you do? You went and you joined the army, and then you try to rise through the ranks. Or if you went into corporate America, and again, you tried to rise through the ranks because you had to make partner, or you had to start your own company, or something like that. So there are all these levels of what success is. And then the counterpart to that is that if you don't achieve any of those things, then you have failed. Because what happened if you married that person that your parents chose for you because they felt they would make a good financial supporter and be able to take care of you? You marry the person, but you find out you and that person really don't have a lot of things in common. You can barely stand the person. You can barely stand making love to that person. You invariably, it leads to infidelity. Why? Because you were never meant to be together in the first place. You take on the job, or you come into the family business where your heart's desire was in another arena or another area, but you weren't allowed to pursue that because you had to be responsible, because your parents created this particular business. You had to go along in the same area. You know, I'll tell you a story. I know someone who most of their life worked in a convenience store, Minimart type of situation. About 2 or 3 persons that they knew eventually, because they knew that business very well, ventured off and opened up their own type of mini marts and what have you, very successful. It was automatically assumed that this other young lady would take the same route and do it. Her family was willing and prepared to help her to go ahead and open a mini mart. To her courage, she said, "That's not what I want. I don't want to work in that for the rest of my life. I've been in it all along now. It pays me a salary, but that's not what I really want to do." I was like, "What are you really excited about? What lights you up?" "Real estate." And so because this person was interested in real estate, but had the fortitude to say, you know what? Don't go and make any investments on my part to go into this arena because you see it as something that is successful. It was successful for A, B, and C, for Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it'll be successful for me. And it probably could be, but that's not what I want to do. Here's the catch. I like real estate. I want to own rental properties. All of her backers that were prepared to help her open up a Minimart were now not prepared to help her to establish a real estate empire. So you see, what happens there is that their idea of success for her was to have a Minimart. Their idea of failure for her was that if you're not going to do what we want you to do, we're not willing to put our resources behind it. And so, but to her credit, she was able to recognize that's not the pathway that she wanted to take. And so when we look at the fear of failure, you probably married somebody you didn't want to marry, or you married somebody that you felt that you loved, but you hadn't really looked at the big picture and you hadn't asked yourself the question, if I did this today and I married that person, or I went into that business relationship and I started this small enterprise or this small partnership, where would it be and where would I be with it in 5 years from now? Where would it be and where would I be with it 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Keep adding 5 years and try to look at it out 20 years into the future and see if that is something that you're considering today and asking yourself, okay, if I were to take this particular choice, what would it look like for me in 5 years? How would it affect my life in 5 years from now? How would it affect my life 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? Because you're getting clarity and because you're able to take the long lens and look towards the future concerning a decision you're making today. You're able to see the possibilities of what that future could look like. And in the present, able to make a determination from that point of view, looking forward. Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to make this commitment? Whether it's in a marriage, whether it's in a significant relationship, whether it's in a business partnership or some other kind of business enterprise that you would be undertaking. So you need to ask yourself those questions because failure will arise. But I want you to begin to look at failure from another perspective. Remember I said at the beginning, the fear of failure, or what really is failure. Because if you have the courage to look at something today and say, you know what, that's not for me. I remember somebody who was very infatuated with me, wanted to marry me. We went out on a date, and mostly I did this because my mother and my dad from a little further off. Yeah, okay, he could be marriage material. And so I remember going out with this young man one day, and he knew I liked the ocean, and so he came around and he pulled up on the side of his property, and it was kind of on a hill. And when you would look down, you could see out to the ocean. I remember feeling like somebody just strangled me. And obviously, two things were at play. I was not in love with this person. I could not see myself married to this person. And I definitely was not ready to get married. A very good friend of mine knows when I thought about getting married, I would almost start to hyperventilate. And I would say to myself, I often understood what men felt like when they would say the old ball and chain was getting put on them. Why is that expression really a truth? It's letting you know that that person probably is not ready for the commitment that they're about to undertake. And so the real failure, as it were, would be to proceed with something you know you're not truly ready for. The courage is to step back from it and be able to say, this is not for me. But if you did not have that fortitude at the moment and you did take the plunge, or you did go into that business venture that was not the right partnership, because business is very much like a marriage and it calls for a lot of intimacy. And so if you look at these things and you're able to say, you know what, I like to do business this way. In other words, I have a certain standard that I want to meet, and you are going into partnership with somebody who has no discipline. The minute $1 is made, they're prepared to spend two. That's not a good mixture. And so what this causes us to do is to take a longer look at these commitments that we are undertaking. People will say, if you drop out of school, you're a failure. Well, if you say that to Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, I think Mark Zuckerberg, and so many other successful persons who understood that, you know what, pursuing this college degree is not going to facilitate the path that I want to take. What is lighting me up is not this. They had the courage to step back and say, I'm not going to pursue this. And they had the stamina to take the flack, more than likely, from people in their life who would say to them, you know what? You're making a wrong decision. I've spent my money thus far paying this. You have some choices you can make. You can say, when I make successful in my business, I will repay you for what you have spent thus far. So you can make some determinations, right? Failure. Let's begin to look at failure from a different perspective. What if failure is about limitless possibilities? Let me say that again. What if failure is about limitless possibilities? In other words, the only time you really fail is when you refuse to choose, is when you refuse to choose, to make a decision, to make a choice, to come to a determination about a particular direction or pathway that you're pursuing. When you decide, you choose, you make a choice, you choose. Once you choose, you commit. You commit. And once you commit, you cannot fail. And why do I say you cannot fail? I say that because what looks like failure to someone else is actually you creating a space, you creating an opening for you to pursue what is right for you. Remember, in the last session, I asked you to look at your future. Do you have a vision of your future? Because if you have a vision of your future, it will help you. I actually believe failure is good for us because we learn from our mistakes, and they're not really mistakes. That's an old language. They're opportunities to transition into something new. And these are not just catchy phrases. This is a mindset that you have to take on. You have to look and say, you know, I was doing something a couple of years ago. a summit. I was putting on a business enterprise summit, and I was expecting to have over 200 people show up in that particular event. Well, instead of 200 people, we ended up with about 45 people. Talk about not listening to when Spirit Yahweh is speaking to you. Now, he was speaking to me, and he kept encouraging me to go forward with this. But I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, the reason for that was he knew, for me at that time where I was, I had to have that big failure to stop, so that I would stop pushing and trying in an old mindset, in an old pattern, when he was trying to bring me into something new. And so he allowed me to go ahead. The persons who attended, the news people were there, the panel of speakers, it was phenomenal. I was asked, when will I be doing it again? And I'm thinking to myself, these people are crazy. I have committed professional suicide here, because I had set such a high bar, and I did not even come close to meeting that bar. But what it did, it stopped me for about 3 years. It took my nerve, because I was a person who was, once I got an idea in my head, I was ready to rush out and go and do it. Details, get the details in the way on the process, we'll figure it out. And it was after that, that as Yahweh began to speak to me, he gave me a vision, and I saw out of this, coming down out of the heavens towards me, this, the word that said, change your modalities. And when I got up, and I changed my modalities, and I got up, and I looked that up to make sure I understood what was being said to me, and I got even more depressed, because I thought, oh my God, I have just failed worse than I even thought that I'd failed. And Yahweh now is telling me how much I failed, because that's the lens that I was looking at this through. That's not where he was wanting me to go with it, but it was part of the process that I had to go through to get to the place where I would change my perception, I would change my methods and my standards, and it would have made me a more better and detailed person in the things that I was doing. And so it was a blessing, actually, in disguise for me. And it's part of the reason that I'm sitting here engaging with you and playing with you and having fun with you and talking about this stuff right now. Because had I continued along that pathway, I probably would not pay much attention to this. And he was pushing me in another, really made a great transition in my life, and turned everything around in the way that I did things. And the truest entrepreneur is always learning and always seeking for adaptability to do something better and more efficiently. Okay? So failure in every area that we could possibly operate in this reality that's considered failure, is not really failure. It's an opportunity to transition into something new. Okay? So I want you to ask yourself, what if failure in a particular area, as I said before, whether it's marriage, whether it's education, your career choices, relationships, business partners, whatever it is that you've chosen at a particular time, and now it's not working. Okay, let's be clear. It's not working. But don't get stuck or depressed in that it's not working. It's actually good that it's not working, because what it's doing is it's allowing you to recognize and become aware in your space, in your environment, that this is not the right pathway or direction for me to be on. Hence, you now have to find the courage to shift into something new, okay? Because what is happening, it's creating an opening for you. It's opening and creating space for that awareness, that choice. That choice is now before you, and that you can choose something different. Not failure. You know, there's a saying, failure is not an option. That's true, because it's not really failure. It's an awareness that you need to shift, to step into something that's more light, that's not heavy, that's not putting a strain on you. Here's a clue. If it's pulling you down, if it's sucking your energy, if it's making you feel low, if it's you dread going to that place, it's heavy and it's not working. You got to ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do? What opportunities there are in my midst? What possibilities, limitless possibilities, are in my midst to choose from to make something different out of this? Okay? Look for the possibilities in the problem. Look for the possibilities to do something different. Okay? Another question that you can ask yourself: what if that choice is required to clear the pathway to allow you to be more of you? I was at a seminar this evening, and one of the women there was speaking after the seminar was over, and she said to the lady, one of the presenters, I really need to talk with you because I'm getting ready to retire. And even though I'm 60, I'm still young. I mean, it was amazing. I'm still young. I'm still vibrant. I still have things I want to do. My husband and I, we need something to do. So she's desperately, because she's retiring this year, looking for something to step into. Now, hopefully for her, that's going to be something that she really wants to do at this stage in her life, as opposed to something she's done for the last 30 years that was a security and not something that lit her up, that excited her. I happen to know this woman a little bit. So, but that was stunning to me, to be right in the presence of that statement being made, because it so ties into what I'm talking now about people doing something for 30 years. Can you imagine? Because it was a secure paycheck. Oh, I could not live that way at this stage in my life. I'm unwilling to live that way at this stage in my life, because I am too aware of how to create possibilities and how to open up the possibilities to do something different or to make something different come about for myself and hence for others. Another question I would like you to ask yourself, because we know, and I've said this already, this reality is full of levels of success and failure standards to keep us playing the game. You know, you got to get the house, you got to get the condo, you got to go to college, and after you go to college, you got to get married, and you got to get the big house, you got to get the car, you have to climb the corporate ladder. To do what? Oh, for the love of Yahweh's sake, don't do it. Find the courage to say no to that and pursue your brilliance. Pursue those things that light you up, that you feel the lightness from it when you're engaged in it. Question, what if you are subconsciously creating failure to tell yourself, this is not what I desire for myself? How about that? What if you're subconsciously failing? If you get up in the morning to go to a particular workplace and you're more tired when you get up than when you went to bed, time to change. You're not a failure if you walk away from that. And there are ways to walk away. You know, you be wise about how you do it. Begin to create the space to transition, because you already know, because failure in that environment is now telling you this does not light you up, this does not excite you anymore, and you need to make a shift. This is taking energy away from you as opposed to giving you energy that, you know, just gives you 48 hours in a 24-hour day. That's how you know when something really lights you up, because you could do it all day long and not get tired from it. That's lighting you up. Okay? So, another question. What if failure was an opportunity to transition into something new? What you have to do is find the courage. And the question I want you to ask yourself, if you feel like you've been fighting with failure, ask yourself, what do I need to do? What possibilities, don't use the word need, what possibilities are there for me to shift from this space to another space that you're creating? Listen to me. I don't want you to do it from this reality. Do you have a vision of your future? Because if you have a vision of your future, step into your future. See your future. Look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road and see yourself. If you're living someplace right now and it's not where you need to be or where you're supposed to be, ask yourself for the environment that you want to be in. Ask yourself for the life that you really want to live. Because the real failure is not living the life that you're meant to live. I told you, I help people with their soul scroll purpose, and then taking that and aligning it with monetizing it, creating a system around it so that you can live the life of freedom that you really want to live. And freedom doesn't mean that you're unattached to anything. Freedom is when you're doing what you really want to do. And by the way, when you're doing what you really want to do, you work maybe a lot more harder and longer than you do at something that you don't love. But here's the catch. Because you have the energy for it, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like play. And you could do it all day long and still be excited. Go to sleep, drop dead, tired, wake up full of energy, ready to go. That's when you know. If you get excited about that, and if that lights you up, if you can look at your future and what you really want it to be, and you get that excitement, then you know it's time to make that change. And be wise. Plan your exit. Plan your transition the way that you want it to be. Sorry about that. I thought I heard somebody behind me. And so you need to look at your future and see yourself in your future. Create your future. Step into your future. We're going to talk about that a lot more in another series that we're going to be doing. But step into that. And that's what I really want you to do. I want you to take yourself into your future. And I want you to create the life that you want to live. And take that energy that you feel that really, oh man, just engages you and lights you up, and bring it back to this reality, and then begin to outwork yourself to it. Just close your eyes if you need to, and breathe in and breathe out. And once you've done that a few more times, until you feel settled, take that energy and expand it into your future. Look around, walk around it, feel it, taste it. Look around at your personal life, look around at your business life, look around at what you really want to do, and if you were doing it, how would you travel? What would you do that you're not doing now? Embrace that. Become one with that energy that lights you up and excites you. And then take that energy, become one with it, receive it, and then step back into this reality, knowing that you already know exactly where you're going. Will there be bumps on the road? Yes. But you now know how to work with the bumps on the road. There are opportunities. So failure is not really failure, is it? It's an opportunity to make a mindset, to make a paradigm shift, to transition into something new. And you know how to work with it, or anything that you're dealing with now, because all you need to do is ask yourself, if I allow this into my space, this possibility, what will it create for me 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? And how does it feel? Explore that, and do it a couple of times until it becomes really, 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 really crystal clear to you. And once that happens, you've created the space. Now, pay attention, because things are going to start showing up in your space. I told you earlier I was at a seminar tonight. I was driving down the road. There were some things that I needed to do about 3 days ago, and I started asking myself, what are the opportunities in my midst right now because I needed some influx of some capital. And I was like, what are the opportunities in my niche right now for me uh, to do the things that I want to do and to take care of the things that I need to take care of? Driving down the road, going to the bank. I'd been to the bank the day before. This time I was going for someone else, but I was asking from the night before and on the way for an opportunity to show up in my midst. I go into the bank, I'm doing what I need to do. I get on the line, and standing in front of me is a man with a insignia on his shirt. I recognized it. I asked him about it, and we ended up having this conversation. He was a person that I needed to see, that I needed to talk to. He gave me some information. It showed me an opportunity. He invited me to this seminar tonight as his guest. When I got there and I said, Mr. So-and-so invited me, he said, oh, you're the lady that he was talking to in the bank. Going there tonight opened up even more possibilities about a number of different things. This is what I'm talking to you about. When you begin to become aware that this has always been around you, but you didn't pay attention to it. I can remember when I was a young child that I would just talk to God. You know, I did not know his original name as Yahweh at that time. And I would just talk to him. And when I'm talking to spiritual people, I would talk to him. And I would say, you know, I would like this or I would like that. And I'm telling you, like that, it would always show up. We have always been creating, we have always been manifesting. But when we started to get older, we were told, oh, life doesn't work that way. Money doesn't grow on trees. Well, of course it does. Isn't money paper? Please. So that was real funny, wasn't it? So you, in other words, people shut it down. And a lot of times it wasn't because they were being mean. It was that they were trying to protect us because all they knew was this reality. All they knew was that, you know what? If you're a girl, they want you to get a good job. They want you to find a husband. They want you to get married. They want you to have some kids. And, you know, men will be men, boys will be boys. You just, you know, once he don't beat you, once he doesn't mistreat you or abuse you, once you have a good home, basically you can put up with anything. No, you don't have to live that life. Okay? And for the men out there, you don't have to marry somebody that you didn't want to marry because your parents. I knew someone a couple of years ago, his parents walked up to him with a young lady and said, this is your wife in America. And they're not from some foreign place. But because they were entrenched in an old Christian mindset about, you know, just getting married and having a family, and that was what life was. No, that did not work out well for him. So don't just take a career because that's what your parents said that you have to do. Find your own brilliance. Find what excites you. Because you're going to have failures, quote unquote, along those lines too. But the failures are always opportunities to shift and transition and to become aware that you could do something different. Listen, I think we've covered that for tonight, and I'm going to see you in about a day or two with the last in this series on the clarity mindset, and then we'll be moving on to something else. Okay? If you like this and it was good for you, I certainly enjoyed engaging with you and playing with you. Please like and subscribe. Again, you can find me on Facebook at KingdomPreneur, Alchemy of Entrepreneurship and Wealth. And you can also find me on YouTube. I look forward to playing with you and engaging with you again. You'll have a really good night.